And we're live. Welcome back to the LOOPcast. It's Tom, Erica, and Josh. We got a great Friday show for you today. The LOOPcast brought to you by The Loop, every American Catholic's favorite morning newsletter. So if you're not subscribed, head over there and do it now. Really excited to do today's show. We have, well, actually, excited and not excited. We had an IVF expansion, and there's a lot of layers to this. And we had a great statement from CatholicVote President Kelsey. We're going to hit on that, but we just got to break it down here. What's going on? Why are we expanding IVF? Is Trump the pro-life president? Yada, yada, yada. We're going to get into all that. Don't you worry. Second part, we had gerrymandering. Josh put us on to the origins of the word gerrymandering. Mm-hmm. The fight continues, and we had a huge Supreme Court case. And one of my favorite things to make Erica do is just like, hey, Erica, I know that you're obsessively watching this really obscure Supreme Court case. I guess it's not accurate, obscure. And just give us the summary. What's going on? So we're going to get the breakdown there, what implications that have for midterms coming up here, or 2028 even potentially. So really interesting stuff there. We got emails about a Muslim prayer room in the Vatican. We will address that. Don't you worry. But we have good news. We have Twilight Zone. I'm actually going to give you guys the gambling secrets of J.B. Pritzker because he is the greatest gambler of all time, according to his tax filings. Stay tuned for that. But before we get into all that, how we can do the show today, shout out to Life on Belay, today's sponsor, an organization doing really meaningful work. They partner with nonprofits and ministries across the country to help them get clear on their mission, strengthen their teams, and build the kind of structure that leads to long-term impact. It's all in the name Belay. In rock climbing, a belay is a safety system that steadies the climber. Do we have any climbers here? I do love. There's a free-range climbing place in Indianapolis that I hit from time to time. Sweet. So fun. They do the same for nonprofits and collectives, providing strategy, expertise, and support so they can reach their goals more effectively. What I love about Life on Belay is that they don't just consult. They come alongside organizations, forging real relationships. They listen, they ask good questions, and they help organizations move from feeling stuck or scattered to confident and equipped. Their work has helped hundreds of nonprofits grow in clarity, sustainability, and impact. You can learn more or see how they could support your organization at lifeonbelay.org. That's lifeonbelay.org, where life-affirming impact is accelerated. Click the link in the description below and see how you can accelerate your impact with Life on Belay. Thank you for sponsoring the show. And then, of course, Erica's skin's glowing as usual.
Favorite. I mean, how many women get to make their living by reading words like buckthorn and Kakadu plum live on air? So from God's hand to your skin, Nazareth Organics is a Catholic family-owned skincare company that handcrafts premium balms and serums using clean ingredients from nature. They just released a new product this month, the Brightening Serum, composed of oils rich in vitamin C, like sea buckthorn and Kakadu plum. This light yet hydrating blend, which I actually am wearing right now, so if you like what you see, click on the link, is designed to brighten your complexion and promote an even skin tone. The Brightening Serum will leave your skin feeling refreshed with a dewy glow every morning. Also try Nazareth Organics Original Tallow Balm, infused with frankincense and myrrh, a powerhouse combo fit for a king, proven to calm inflation and revitalize your skin. Or try the Sleep Balm, a magnesium tallow blend with magnesium sourced from the ancient Zechstein seabed that relaxes your body into peaceful sleep. St. Paul tells us that our bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit and must be cared for. You are not your own. You were bought with a great price. So glorify God in your body. Visit nazareth-organics.com and use code LOOPcast at checkout. Thank you, Nazareth Organics.
Awesome. Okay, so I say we get right into it here. We have a fact sheet from the White House, and we have a clip that I can just start up with up top regarding President Trump's expansion of IVF care. So I am going to play that here.
We're also taking historic steps to vastly expand access to insurance coverage for fertility care, including IVF, something that, as you know, was not covered. Effective immediately, for the first time ever, we will make it legal for companies to offer supplemental insurance plans specifically for fertility. That's never been done before. We're signing it in today with what we sign. Americans will be able to opt in to specialized coverage just as they get vision and dental insurance. They're going to get fertility insurance for the first time. So I don't know. I don't know how well these things are covered. I see the Democrats like to take credit for all of the things we do. We do the things and they take the credit. But I figure if you do enough of these, eventually people are going to figure it out.
Here we have it. Erica, can you get in some details here? What exactly was announced?
Yeah, so this was, he unveiled a public-private partnership with a pharmaceutical company, EMD Serono, which is a maker of the fertility drug Gonal F. And so this was made as an announcement in conjunction with them. EMD Serono, as part of this deal, is promising massive discounts, so 84% discount to American buyers of the drugs through this TrumpRx.gov site, which is the new Trump pharmacy that's set to launch next year. This is part of his overall attempt to bring down healthcare costs. But this announcement in particular centered on what you could call reproductive healthcare, because it's actually looking to make babies. Unfortunately, they're trying to the primary front and center effort here in order to increase the birth rate and get families reproductive care is through IVF. So yes, he announced a new employee benefit option, as you heard in the clip. This is going to be optional, according to this action. It's going to be optional for employers to sign on to, but it's going to make it so that the coverage is similar to what you would get for an add-on plan, like your dental or your vision. And then, of course, workers themselves can opt in if it's covered through the employers. So it was said multiple times. I watched the press conference. Multiple people got up. We had Senator Britt stand up from Alabama, correct? And we had Dr. Oz, RFK Jr. made statements. And the Departments of Labor, Health and Human Services, Treasury, they all had a joint statement following this conference that confirmed the plans that will, one, propose new rules to expand how fertility benefits may qualify as limited accepted benefits, and review regulations on supplemental health plans to accommodate the new coverage type. So my reaction was, it could have been a lot worse. It was still really bad. And that's what a lot of people are saying this morning. What could have been worse, the policy, there's no mandate to employer participation in the way that we saw mandates under Obama for coverage of things like contraception or abortifacients. So thank God for that small mercy. Right. And sterilization. And also there aren't federal subsidies going into this. So taxpayer dollars are not part of the plan. I will take the crumbs from the table, but at the same time, the pro-life movement needs to be done taking crumbs from the table of the largesse of non-pro-life movements like this. IVF is touted, and again, this whole conference touted it as Republicans being now the party of parents. We are now the pro-life party. This is so pro-life. Whereas in actuality, and what most of you listening know, is that IVF is a reproductive technology predicated upon the creation and intentional destruction or freezing of human embryos. For every live birth resulting from IVF, we have between 5 and 10 frozen or dead other human children. So those 3% of children who survive the IVF process, who are conceived and survive and are born, I'm glad they're here. But the pro-life movement does not forget that other 97%. And it is hard to sit there and watch while, person after person gets to get up and say that somehow IVF is the pro-baby. It's solving the nation's birth dearth. And you're like, actually, IVF is destroying almost as many embryos every year in our country as abortion is, right? We're in the million range here, yearly and annually.
It's a lot.
Yeah. And so we thought, yeah. Oh, can I just do one more thing? So Emily Jasinski, God bless her, she posed a question to the president here. And if we could just pull that up and play it, because here's where Trump's at in terms of understanding what's going on here. I think it's very telling.
IVF. Some pro-life conservatives have religious objections to IVF and are already critical of this policy. What's your message to them?
I don't know about the views of that. I'm just looking to do something because, pro-life, I think this is very pro-life. You can't get more pro-life than this. Please.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a surface level non-answer. I mean, the question is nobody there on his team offering any suggestions to it? Actually, I don't think that's the case. I think you just try to misdirect and you didn't want to answer the question, because I know that there are people there are lots of personnel inside the Trump administration, both in the Department of Health and Human Services, as well as in the administration. Vince Haley is a really good, solid Catholic, and I'm sure
as vice president, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio.
Well, as J.D. Vance,
there's
right.
plenty of Catholics that should understand.
Well,
this.
I think Marco Rubio's doing about 100 different things. I'm sure he didn't weigh in on this one particularly, given the Middle East stuff. But
maybe he needs another job. Maybe he can be the pro-life correspondent to the president. But
so, I mean, I would like to basically echo that everything that Erica is saying. I mean, obviously, we consider IVF to be evil and immoral. The reasons it's at its first, you're creating new human life in a laboratory outside of the male-female union. That's is right point. From the start illicit and immoral in our minds. And then, of course, the greater problem here is that you're creating lots of new human babies, and you're implanting a whole bunch, and then there's oftentimes what they call euphemistically selective reduction, where they just abort some of the children that don't make it, and then there's other children that just end up in a freezer for the rest of their lives. Yeah, all of that is morally abhorrent, and we've said that from the get-go. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump. There's a lot of Republicans that were freaking out over a court case in Alabama or last summer.
Yeah, I was going to say that one.
That's where this all really stems from. And my good friend and a coworker, Tom McCluskey, said Republicans that were so petrified and scared about the implications of this started losing their minds, and they wanted to rush, and they said, how can we make sure that we people don't accuse us of trying to use the court system to completely radically. I mean, here's what's happened. Obviously, we've had a system over the last 60 years where the left has been on the march on the sexual revolution, and for the most part, Republicans are like, what? We just want to cut taxes. We want to deregulate the economy. We
bomb foreign countries.
Bomb foreign countries. And so oh, what? You don't want to, you're against killing babies. And then, okay, so we'll be against abortion, fine, or whatever. But when it comes to IVF, when it comes to pornography, when it comes to the, marriage, when it comes to, LGBT, all that kind of stuff, for the most part, Republicans have not wanted to weigh in on most of these social issues other than a few tepid words here or there. The change has been actually welcome on the trans stuff, where Republicans started realizing, wait a minute, we can actually win elections by standing on the right side of this issue.
By actually working towards the truth. Yeah, which
right. Now,
imagine that in politics. But
on the issue of IVF, this is a case where pro-life Catholics are not just in a minority position in the country. We are a minority country, even within, not even just the Republican Party, but even amongst conservatives.
Yeah.
And so this is a difficult thing, and we have to be clear about this. So when Donald Trump made this big announcement after the whole freak out about this court case in Alabama last summer, Donald Trump got out there and goes, I'm going to be more IVF than anyone. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to increase the access. I'm going to make it easier for parents to do it. This obviously announcement is him delivering on his campaign promise. And again, Donald Trump is a guy who delivers on his campaign promises. Like this, people aren't used to this. Well, the fact of the matter is, when he announced this, we at Catholic Vote privately and publicly told the Trump campaign, listen, we are going to vote for you and campaign for you absolutely despite this thing, and we will try to do everything we can to stop it. And we have lobbied the campaign and also the administration. This could have been massively worse.
Yes.
But here's the problem. It may not be as worse right now, and it was worse. Right. I mean, obviously, you make a drug, use the most favored nation status. It's a very populist thing that Trump has done. So which I'm in favor of largely for most drugs. Whatever the prescription drug is, if they're selling it in Canada for super cheap, well, then why don't we get it for 40% off? We're Americans, darn it. Right. So he's applying that same rubric to this.
Yeah,
I get it.
Because, and it just need to be clear on a few things. So you mentioned the Alabama Supreme Court decision. I think it's kind of instructive. We didn't go into the context there. Basically, the Alabama Supreme Court ruled that the destruction of living human embryos could be subject to prosecution under the state's wrongful death of minors statute. And the reason being was there was a fire in this fertility lab, and a ton of these embryos died in the fire, just perished. And so all the people
that are like, hey,
what happened to these?
Killed our kids, right?
Which of course, it's like 100 moral quandaries going on at one time, which is, I think, unfortunately, the problem with the IVF industry. The second being that the IVF procedures, in my mind, are predatory for a few reasons. And by changing one of the reasons that it's predatory, which would be the price point, doesn't take away from the predatory nature of the facility itself.
100% agree.
Because the first thing that people bring up is, oh my gosh, it costs $40,000, and it's the first and only thing my doctor recommends when I go in and say, hey, I can't have a baby. And that's why largely you mentioned this is somewhat of a, it's not popular yet. I hope one day it may be within the conservative coalition being like, what? You're not IVF? Because most people have they don't understand IVF at all. They're just prescribed it immediately when they can't have children, when they want to have children. And so I've actually had a personal experience sitting down with people that are like, oh, like you're Catholic. I've heard, IVF. It'll like come up and I'm like, well, do you actually know, what IVF entails? Like what the process is.
What it does, right?
And as soon as you talk about it, they're like, oh, that is a little Star Trek. That is kind of crazy. And it costs $40,000 or it costs $60,000. It's not covered by insurance. And it's a multi-billion-dollar industry that profits off of this kind of treatment with a notably low success rate in many cases and no ethical way to handle what they have done. And I may add also adds to child trafficking potentially, because what does this open up? This technology opens up being able to create babies outside of the union of a man and woman. Therefore, you can just create children and put them in surrogate mothers, right? I mean, the UN has come out and been surrogacy is a huge problem. So by writing one element of the predatory nature, namely the cost and insurance, it does not nullify the entire process itself. So I'd be curious, Josh, for you, like, I think we made all of our statements clear, and unfortunately all Catholics don't even know about this, which is sad to me. Catholics at a minimum should understand what's going on and forcefully protest.
I mean,
but how do you recommend any success here? Because it just feels like we mentioned the political optics of it. It's going to go forward. I guess it's not as bad as it could be, but like, how do you even recommend Catholics go forward that feel convicted about the IVF issue?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is one of those things where like we fought for 50 years, 49 years, right? We had a situation for 49 years in our country where the federal judiciary would refuse to allow states to protect unborn human life, really in any meaningful way, right?
Yeah.
We had to fight so long and so hard, protracted battle just to win the right for the court to go, okay, fine, the states can protect unborn human life again.
I guess.
Oh, awesome. That didn't mean we started prosecuting abortionists in Los Angeles. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it didn't mean that we were abortion free from coast to coast. We just won the right to actually start passing state laws to protect.
To have the debate even.
Right, like, really. Yeah. And it was, and so, like on this, like it might be easier even to talk about pornography. The production and consumption of pornography is morally wrong. Okay. We're so awash in it in today's society. It floods everywhere. It's available at the fingertips of even children. We have books that are pornographic that we have in libraries. Like we have to go so far. Like the Overton window on this one is so wackadoodle that we're like, online websites that will distribute pornography for free, we should just make sure that the end user is actually over 18. And so people are like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. I'm like, wait, what? I mean, we don't let, you have to be 16 years old and have a proof of ID to drive a car, but like, pornography.
Hardcore BDSM, sure, whatever.
Walk up to the computer, you're 8 years old, you should be able to access whatever you want. Like, are you out of your minds? And so like, I just tell people like, and what's funny to me about this is that I get a lot of pro-lifers who are upset about Donald Trump. They're like, see, thanks, buddy. This is what you gave us. And I'm like, hello, am I pro IVF? Are you out of your mind? No, of course. Like when he announced this, we denounced it. In fact, I had one of these guys who's on Twitter last night. And he was just ripping on CatholicVote. I can't believe it's CatholicVote. Where are they? And I'm like, I was about to hit reply, like, because he accused us of not doing anything about this Trump.
Oh my gosh.
He accused us of not doing anything about mifepristone.
No idea.
So I'm like, I'm ready to go. I'm, both barrels ready. And I'm about ready to hit send on the link to the article we published 2 weeks ago on mifepristone, in which we denounced it, the making the cheap drug. And then I'm like, and then all of a sudden he starts deleting his tweets. He realized that, maybe.
Good man.
Josh taking care of reply guys.
I was ready, man. I was ready. But this again, so the hope is by also promulgating what RFK did talk about in his press conference was he was talking about there are, Maha style treatments that can, try to get to the underlying cause here and help people get true fertility and understand the root causes of their infertility. Yes. And to the extent that happens, I hope we can breathe life into that and try to convince more couples of that. And if all that he does with this announcement is do a lot more spending and educating of the American public on that, then maybe we can start to build the framework where people go, oh, wow, maybe this is the better option.
Yes.
Instead of, I would love to, I mean,
and real quick on this. And I just want to make sure, because Erica's here. And, Erica's the only one, I guess, that's.
We just can't slam the door and just wish IVF's over. It's just not going to happen like that.
Yeah, for sure. Erica, was it the Omaha Institute? I just want to, so I guess what I hope to provide here is like, we've been through the process. I've been through the process personally, where we've gotten in touch with pro-life doctors that, would never prescribe IVF. But if you're struggling with infertility, these are really good people to go see, because they're going to try to address the root issues. Like who would people go to?
Yeah, this would be, you'd want to go to the Creighton Institute for sure. You can just Google NAPRO technology, NAPRO technology, and it's just mind blowing, the success rates with the MAHA. And I think, Josh, that really is the hook into starting to turn this around. Like, I think we're looking at 50, 100 years to turn this really around and to get out of the IVF thing. But you're looking with IVF cycles, you're looking at three IVF cycles have a success rate of like 42%. So it's not even the most successful
not
way.
even majority of the time.
It's not even a majority success rate. But if you look at NAPRO technology, reports for, depending on what condition you're looking at, endometriosis, PCOS, delayed fertility, delayed marriage, delayed attempts, you're looking at a 50 to 80% success rate with NAPRO. And so I hope that what reality will win out. And like you said, Josh, RFK did mention that his hope is, with this renewed attention on the fertility crisis in our country, which is a real crisis, that we will start to find ways to prevent people from even getting to the point of needing IVF and to address root causes. And that is, of course, the answer. But the problem is the medical establishment for so long has been educated to and focused on just, okay, what's the easiest thing? We can inject you, you can go masturbate, we can inject the baby into you, and like what, like that's like your go-to. And we're talking about $1 billion industry, right? When you're talking about IVF at this point. So,
and behind the scenes, Erica, we were talking about the that article from the Celebrity Doctor, like the concerning trend among Gen Z women.
Yeah.
What is it? And the Celebrity Doctor is
there's an organic interest in this.
Yeah.
There is an organic interest in younger generations to start to question the birth control regimen, to start to question things like IVF and making babies in labs. I think there is the pendulum swinging, the tide is turning. And as Catholics, we need to ride that all the way. And
if I could be clear about that trend, the trend that she was concerned about was that Gen Z women are getting off of birth control and never starting. Yeah. And she didn't like that fact. She's like, oh, there's this misinformation online that it's linked to these problems. And I'm like, oh, you mean reputable studies?
I'm down that rabbit hole, Tom.
You're down the rabbit hole.
The deep next week is going to be all this rabbit hole of it is.
Because
so
I would just like to even just stop on a philosophical note and like, what are we doing to the daughters of this country when we're getting them on hormonal drugs at age 13?
Before their brains are fully developed. That's what's killing me right now with the research.
Erica, that's 12 years, 13 years before the brain's developed. And you think that somehow this is going to have no adverse effects, which they do know that there is, because there's a long list of all the problems that you could be on that they give you with the birth control. So they've already admitted
the receipts, guys.
Right. And so like this is kind of, I do have hope in that regard. I will say, just based on anecdotal conversations I've had myself, there is this mass scale questioning of the medical orthodoxy. I think really started with COVID. And I think now people are going down the rabbit hole on our food, on drugs that you're taking on a daily basis. And I just think that if nothing else, that's just a huge win, because like these are obviously causes to why we are more obese than ever, why we're more infertile than ever. Like you would think we're in the most advanced country of all time, we'd have some of these things figured out. We don't, because they're under control.
I would give credit to our former president, Brian Birch, for understanding this.
Yes.
Like, he understood that RFK was getting onto something here with the MAHA movement. Now, that doesn't mean that RFK is with us 100% on everything. No. But we can lean into the things that he's talking about with this MAHA movement, and just to say, yes, let's talk about our holistic body. Let's talk about the chemicals we're putting in here. And so I would just encourage people. Isn't it the St. Paul the Sixth Institute?
Yeah, St. Paul
Yeah.
VI is another great resource for this. Oh my gosh, such
Yeah,
good.
so have those on hand for when you have these inevitable conversations, because people are gonna be like, isn't this so great, IVF? Or you're gonna meet people that are trying to have kids. Like if you're my age,
Yeah.
you're meeting people in that stage right now. And they just are only told that's the only option. And it's super expensive, it's super predatory, and it's super invasive. So there's better options for you that are gonna be better for your soul and your body, and hopefully your family. Like hopefully you'll be able to have kids after these
And
things.
I just
know
want to
people have
end
done
this with, like, one of the things that in terms of the pro-life movement, when I feel like we made a lot of substantial ground in the pro-life movement, is when we moved attention away from only the baby, which we still care obviously about the baby, but when we started to show compassion and care for the mother herself as well, and emphasize that language a lot, then I think people started to realize these guys aren't just like fanatically concerned about the baby. They do care about the women. And that's what the Maha thing on this could be. It's like, actually, we want better results for you and your husband. I know you want a child. We also care about what's being put into your body, the chemicals and that kind of stuff. And I think leaning into that kind of stuff, is very helpful, because, you're like, wait a minute now, what, all these children in the freezer, and like, they just kind of glaze your eyes open.
Right. It's too hard to think about.
Right.
Yeah.
It's going to take a while. I mean, and again, you got to play the long game on this stuff, but that doesn't mean
I'm here for it. I'm all
I'm here
about
to play the long game. And I mean,
here.
the reason I made this top story is like, we need to so forcefully every time that this is even whispered by the administration or by someone else to forcefully come out against it and to provide that there's other options, better options. Because if we just roll over on this, it's like, there's just too much at stake.
Well, and Erica, to her credit, you've done such a great job on this. We had that, she's done lots of articles against IVF over at CatholicVote. So, I mean,
thank you.
You can look at that information. It's all right there. We've been very clear from this from day one. So,
yeah, absolutely. Okay, before the next section, Erica.
All right. Did you know that American homeowners have over $32 trillion in equity, and criminals are targeting it with a growing scam the FBI calls house stealing? Scammers can transfer your title out of your name using a one-page document they file at the county. Then they can take out loans against it or even sell it behind your back. And the scariest part is you won't even know anything's happening until the foreclosure notices start arriving in your mailbox, leaving you with a financial and legal nightmare. The best way to protect your equity is with Home Title Lock's exclusive $1 million triple lock protection. This service offers 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and if fraud should occur, their U.S.-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix the fraud and restore your title. So, when was the last time you checked on your title? If you are like me before I heard about this, the answer is never, and that is exactly what scammers are counting on. The good news is we have partnered with Home Title Lock to offer you all 60 days for just $1. What a deal. Click the link in the description below or in the chat and use our promo code LOOP60 to get 60 days for just $1. And you will also get a free title history report to ensure you're not already a victim. And make sure you check out that $1 million triple lock protection detail when you get there. Click the link below or in the chat, promo code LOOP60.
Excellent.
Nailed it.
Excellent. Okay, so here comes our Friday treat.
Oh boy.
Erica, Supreme Court arguments. What are we talking about here?
Okay. We might be seeing a little regrets on the Democrat side that they even brought this up. Are we having gerrymandering regrets? So these oral arguments were held for the case Louisiana versus Calais this week, October 15th and 16th. And it's a case about race and voting and how we will draw political maps in America. So this was a challenge from non-Black voters. And yes, sadly, that's an important descriptor, non-Black voters in Louisiana to Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Also an important date to keep in mind. So the VRA, the Voting Rights Act, aims to stop racial discrimination in voting, especially in the South. One effect of it was the creation of these majority-minority districts where racial minorities, mostly Black Americans, could elect candidates of their choice because representation. That's sort of like the AP explanation of this.
Okay.
I mean, not for nothing.
Not yeah. Yeah, we can get into all that, but I'll just give the context. So we get multiple Supreme Court decisions. 1986, another case supported the approach, but then in the 1990s, the court started saying things like, well, race can figure into your districting, but not if it's the primary factor. So you can do race, but not a lot of race, or something like that. 1993, another ruling also even floated the possibility that race-based redistricting was totally in violation of the Constitution. Could be totally in violation, maybe. So what you get is sort of this like legal catch-22, right, for the states. And if states don't use race in redistricting, they can get sued for not complying with the Voting Rights Act. But if they do use race, they could be sued for racial gerrymandering and violation of the 14th and 15th Amendments equal protection clauses, okay? So what happened in Louisiana? In 2022, Black voters in Louisiana, yes, they sued the state because of the congressional map, and they said it deliberately diluted Black voting power. So a federal court agreed, and they ordered Louisiana to create a second majority Black district. So they would create a voting district based on race, a second one. In response, we get Senate Bill 8 in Louisiana, which had that second majority district in 2024. So now a group of non-Black Louisianians, that's how you call them, is suing. And we get this case at the Supreme Court because they say the new map is unconstitutional racial gerrymandering. They argue that race was used as the main factor, so we're violating multiple Supreme Court precedents in drawing the district lines, and that's the argument. So we get the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. They're arguing in front of the court that this is undermining hard-won protections for minority voters. The VRA, on the other hand, says Louisiana was never meant to force states to draw maps based on race, and that we've moved beyond these injustices. So it's time to end it.
And just asking a simple question. So
Please.
We're all talking about gerrymandering, redistricting. It would be a map drawn around a certain geographic location, and they would vote for someone to represent them in Congress.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the drawing of the congressional districts for these states. And just to understand that the Voting Rights Act covers certain states that they actually need to get pre-clearance from the Department of Justice to do their maps. Now, I live in Michigan. Detroit is the largest city in Michigan. It has a very large African-American population, but there's no Voting Rights Act concerns. Like the state of Michigan doesn't have to get its maps approved. And if Republicans completely ran Michigan, they could slice Detroit into like 5 pieces and put each piece into a different congressional district and dilute the power of the Democrats that are in Detroit, who are obviously mostly Black. It's like a 90% Black city. You can't do that in Alabama because Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, Arizona, these states have to go and their maps have to get approved by the Department of Justice because they've had a legacy of disenfranchising Black voters, which is true. But what the justices were talking about in these, you can see from their line of questioning here, it's like, well, they would think a race-based remedy to try to fix this disenfranchisement that they had for generations going up until 1965, they would consider like race-based districting to allow them to be represented in Congress as a perfectly legitimate response on a temporary basis.
Yeah.
They just don't think that response should be permanent. And so the question for the majority, I think, is whether or not 60 years later, do we still need these temporary protections, or have we kind of moved past this? Here's the interesting thing to think about. In 1965 in Alabama, like everyone's Democrats. It's white racist Democrats against trying to dilute the power of Black Democrats in Birmingham. And so you take the state and you draw these lines, and they would do things like, and the courts would say, wait a minute now, every district has to have the same number of voters, because they would just draw districts in such a way, and this district wouldn't have as many. And so the court kept adding to these things and then said, now listen, if you have like 600,000 people in Birmingham, you should, and it's like 90% Black, they should have their own district. Don't just try to slice it up like a pizza pie into all these different districts as a way to dilute.
Pizza's generous. Like the maps that get drawn look like my 3-year-old drawing
Salamanders.
a picture for me. You know what I mean? Like they
Well,
look really
right.
bizarre and on purpose.
Now, here's the interesting thing about this. Democrats were kind of conflicted on this. Okay. So after a while, the Democratic Party kind of liked this race-based stuff because it guaranteed that they would have certain Black Democrats who were very liberal would get seats all throughout the South, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, and all this kind of stuff. And for a while, Republicans really liked this, actually, in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, because basically, if you'll remember, Nixon started winning, states in the South, but for the longest time, like white Democrats were dominant. And by isolating all the blacks into these hyper Democratic districts, then the outlying rural areas were slowly turning Republican all through the 80s,
right.
90s, and 2000s. So now you have a situation where you have the white Republicans and then you have these black Democrats. Now, here's the thing. Here's what I'm going to try to help you understand and illustrate this, okay? Imagine a scenario. This is kind of crazy, right? But like the Democrats are saying, oh, you're trying to carve up these districts to eliminate, black districts like in Birmingham or whatever, and you're just doing it because you're racist. And my point is, you're half right. They are trying to redistrict it to try to maximize the Republican Party's strength in Alabama and all these other states. That's true, but it's not because of racism. Honestly, if you took like 500,000 black Democrats from Birmingham, Alabama, and moved them into Ann Arbor, Michigan, and took 500,000 white liberals from Detroit area and switched their seats and put them in Birmingham, then what would happen? Republicans would slice up the whole thing and they would have all 7 seats in Alabama be Republican, and no one would say anything because you wouldn't be able to accuse them of racism. They're wanting to redistrict the lines to maximize their party strength. It's not about race at this point. It's 60 years later. That's 100%. The kind of point that people like got to talk around these things.
At this point, Erica, can you kind of signal what the different justices were signaling on that very question? Like, have we moved past the time necessary for this?
Yeah, and that was Justice Kavanaugh raised that point first, and the Solicitor General who was arguing for the plaintiffs, Hashim Mupon, he was great. He wanted to point out to the justices that the problem before the court from the Louisianians' point of view is that it's not the mere consideration of race in redistricting. Like, the problem is that race has come to subordinate what he called traditional neutral principles, and that's the factor that can't be compromised. This set off the KBJ. KBJ was not happy with this.
Figured this was coming.
And this was probably the greatest. So I'm not going to play the clip, but this is what she said word for word. I transcribed it myself. These folks, meaning the disabled people, these folks don't have access to these buildings. The facilities must be made equally open to people with disabilities. So she's talking about laws saying that buildings where we go to vote have to have ramps for people with wheelchairs. There needs to be, accessibility.
ADA compliant.
Yeah, ADA compliant. And she says they don't have equal access to the voting system. They are disabled. My kind of paradigmatic example of this is something like the ADA. Congress passed the ADA against the backdrop of a world generally not accessible to people with disabilities. Why is that not happening here? Black people are disabled.
Well, there was a systemic disenfranchisement of black voters, and so you could say the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was a remedy to help fix this. The question is it still needed 60 years later? And that's, I guess, what Kavanaugh's getting at. Like to me, it's not like we're going in, jumping in a DeLorean and going back to 1965 and saying whether or not it's, there's any merit to passing that bill. Like, there was merit to the bill. Maybe the remedy could have been a little bit different or whatever. We can argue about that. But there absolutely was a need to do this. The question is, 60 years later, do you still need it?
Well, and the question also is that if the court has set the precedent in multiple cases saying that race at this point, at the court, where we get it, what the signals we're getting from like Barrett and Thomas are that, in fact, the court has spoken on this, and they have said that while race, they have said, acknowledging what was before, right, in the 60s, but that at this point, race cannot be the primary consideration. So then this was another GOAT moment from Clarence Thomas. He just turned to the Solicitor General Mupon and he said, actually, this was Aguinaga, And he said, what role did that case, the Robinson case, which was the one that forced Louisiana to draw a second Black majority district, what role did that play in your drawing of the district and passing the law SB 8 that this is all about?
This whole new map, right?
Yeah, and Aguinaga said, he said, look, we drew it because the courts told us to. We would never have passed SB 8 without that court case. They said a majority Black district was required.
A second one, right?
A second
second
one.
one.
And our legislature saw that marching order. This was a 100% race-based only redistricting decision. And in which case, Thomas and, again, Amy Coney Barrett, Gorsuch, their line of questioning was kind of pushing this in the direction of, at this point, that kind of practice from the courts saying you have to draw an entirely race-based district, that seems to be in violation of the Civil Rights Act. So it seems like we're in a sort of situation where if Democrats want to uphold the VRA, the Voting Rights Act, they're going to have to repeal the Civil Rights Act, which you really know they don't want to do either. And that was definitely where these justices were going. So
a bit of a quandary.
Yeah. After the questioning, do I think they're going to overturn the Voting Rights Act? I don't think that's going to happen here. Probably what we're going to see is that one section 2, that says you can't have race as the primary driver in drawing your lines. That's probably going to get beefed up and adjusted a little bit, and there'll be some new precedents set to be clearer about it. But yeah, Tom has up on the screen right now.
And I also think that I think the court is going to say that, 60 years later, we don't need these states to have to go to the Justice Department to get pre-cleared these maps.
Yes.
That thing is going to die too.
That'll be simpler.
This one went viral. I think it was like 13.4 million views. So what could happen without Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act?
This was done by the New York Times.
Yeah.
So is this true? Like, Josh, political wonk.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is very plausible scenario. Now,
just for the audio, give a description of what you see on this.
Yeah, so I mean, the current map right now, in the South, you have states like Alabama that have 2 Black Democrats districts, and then was it 4 others that are, or 5 others, and so if this Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act gets thrown out, and these states don't have to worry about racial, gerrymandering and creating these majority Black districts because of longstanding injustices that had happened for generations before 1965. If these states are allowed to just pass maps as if they're just a normal state, then Alabama could draw a map where all 6 or 7 of their districts are held by Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia, goes from having 5 or 6 Democrats to having about 3. So all across from Louisiana, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, you're talking about Democrats losing 12 seats in Congress because of this. So that is massive. That's already larger than the margin right now.
Yeah.
But the House of Representatives is at. What will happen is, there is a chance that they could release this verdict in January. That's highly unlikely. They could do it January, they could do it March, in which case then Republicans would go into overdrive and change their maps this year, this next year. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it'll probably get released at the end of June, and there will not be enough time for it to be remedied in time for the 2026 campaign. But that means 2028, Republicans will I think the court is pretty clear that they're going to vote and strike this kind of racial gerrymandering down.
Yeah, and I just want to be super clear, Josh. The reason why the rest of the country does not look like this is because the rest of the country doesn't have to go to the Department of Justice to get their maps approved. So they look how they look now because they've been able to basically operate normally. But because of these artificial provisions with Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, this is why the South looks like this now and would look like this without it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, I actually am very sympathetic to the arguments that Kavanaugh was making, and that there was a time where this kind of stuff was needed because you did have gross disenfranchisement of Blacks for generations, and that was absolutely immoral. The question is, in the year 2025, do we really think that there is any kind of widespread racism that is preventing, is amount
KVJ does.
I mean, wouldn't this
I mean,
kind
it's
of
just-
follow too? This would kind of follow the decision that they made about affirmative action not too long ago as well. Like there may have been a time where that was necessary for a little bit, but in the year of our Lord 2025, like is it actually doing more harm than it is good? And I think people really convincingly made the argument, yes, it's doing a lot more harm than it actually is good to the people, to some of the people it purportedly was set out to help.
100%.
So the Democratic Party, has been gifted an additional at least 12 House seats for the last, several decades because of this.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, and you know what? That shouldn't be in perpetuity. It shouldn't be forever.
Yeah.
So
Okay, that's interesting. I'm glad we got into the guts of that one because that is not the discussion I see being had online from legacy outlets or by Twitter itself. I feel like there's both extremes, but that made a lot of sense after the breakdown. Appreciate it, gang.
well, there's also, I mean, the redistricting stuff, and I'll just take just 1 minute on this. Like California, Texas did the redistricting and they redo their whole lines. And so what's going to amount, what they're going to probably add 5 Republican seats, out of Texas coming up for the 2026 cycle. So Gavin Newsom and the California Democrats are spending, $50 million to put something on the ballot this November.
Obama's doing ads for him, Josh.
Yeah, so is AOC. And it's like, let's just have the brakes on our independent commission and let us have politically charged gerrymandering maps to try to squeeze more seats out of California. So then it's just asymmetrical warfare. Now Indiana, North Carolina, states that are dominated by Republicans. And it's funny, too, because in North Carolina, you have a Democratic governor. But the Democratic governor has no veto authority over the drawing of gerrymandering and districting maps because former state senator Roy Cooper, who then became governor, was the one that said, no, the governor should never have that power.
Interesting.
Mm.
So, yeah, because I feel like this is where the game's being played. I saw, was it Scott Pressler said he's coming to Indiana and he's going to primary anyone that doesn't sign up for gerrymandering. And it's been interesting to see people kind of like present, oh, I would never do that. Like gerrymandering. I think Obama was actually famously really anti-gerrymandering and is now literally doing ads for Gavin Newsom to do in California.
Illinois is the worst. I mean, just looking at the maps, actually the thing is, based on the population of Massachusetts, there's so many Democrats that live in Massachusetts. There are Republicans, like 40%, but they're scattered in so different ways that you would actually need like a hyper-political nerd like me to carve 2 Republican districts. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like any random pattern of 10 districts based on where people live. And it's very likely in Massachusetts you get 10 Democrats. But that's not the case like in Illinois. I mean, these districts.
No, not at all. Illinois, dude, anyone from
disgusting.
Illinois, their main frustration is, why is our state in the dumpster because of Chicago? No one can get any representation outside of Chicago.
And you take
it's
a
like
picture of the
everywhere else
district
is
maps.
red.
Yeah.
I mean, Illinois is essentially Kansas without Chicago. Like they are conservative.
The real radical plan would be to say, let's let Cook County become a state.
Literally, it would
Save
change
the rest
everything.
of Illinois.
Yeah, seriously. Can we secede Cook County?
But it's like, do we really want to add 2 more Democrats to the Senate? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, good point. All right, Erica, what's your good news?
Okay, I have some. This is just an interesting one. So the guys over at the Pillar, I'm gonna give them a little shout out. I rag on them sometimes for being boring, but I love you, JD Flynn, love you, Ed, and and they had a really great response to the IVF thing. They came out and they were like, "Look, the Pillar is never going to cover IVF. We're never going to opt into this, obviously, but today they made a moral commitment for the gospel of life. And look at this like cute baby. Oh my gosh, I'm just dying.
Well played, JD.
Oh my
Put up
gosh.
a cute baby.
My milk just let down. I'm not even nursing. Like, that's such a cute baby. Okay. However big the Pillar's newsroom gets and however many employees we have, we commit today to paying 75% of all employee family adoption costs and the costs for all fertility treatment undertaken in accordance with the doctrine of the church. And then they said, if you are a diocesan bishop, a pastor or apostolate leader, or a Catholic leading a business, we want to encourage you strongly to do the same thing. So, challenge laid down. I just thought, yes, this is what family policy would look like covering that 75% of adoption costs. Are you serious? It's amazing.
That's pretty cool. And also just,
cool.
putting the priority of maternity and paternity care. There's no actual incentive in the tax code for nonprofits to be generous with those kind of benefits because there's no tax being paid anyway by nonprofit corporations. And yet Catholic Vote, we made sure to have maternity care and paternity care only after my wife gave birth to the last child, but whatever.
It's the hazards of being a founder, Josh. That's just
I tell you, I got to go to Spain and Poland, so I guess I'll call it.
It's paying off.
Right.
It's paying off. You can't complain too much, buddy. All right, Josh, what you got?
I said that one for you, bro. Okay, so a little palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Who was the most prominent guest performer at the Opry?
Oh,
Guess?
the Hillbilly Thomas.
No, I'm looking at it, so I would cheat.
Oh, okay. I give up.
Did you know that a United States president once visited the Grand Ole Opry?
Josh's
Erica?
favorite question mark?
Oh, I did not. Nixon?
Oh, yes. And he performed.
No
Let's
way.
roll the tape.
What does he do? Sing? Okay.
All right, I had it on mute for the ads.
When I start playing it, but that I think they'll know it when I start playing it. But anyway, you remember on that prisoners of war affair, that dinner, one of the highlights was when Irving Berlin, who had been very ill, and came down and brought the original score of the great song that he wrote that everybody sings since then.
Yes, I remember.
God Bless America.
Yes, I remember.
And I thought possibly we'd try that.
Oh, dude, that'd be great. God bless America.
The host just loves it.
Yo. Nixon tickling the ivories.
Favorite.
Oh, someone's head got right in the way. Dude, is this even the same country?
I love that song so much.
That's
That makes
crazy.
me so happy.
God bless America.
And look, that is pounding the keys.
The people do want you to make a video on why you like Nixon. They want a Nixon report from you. So we'll see if we can get that one done.
I could do a deep and just interview Josh about Nixon.
True.
Christopher
Thanks.
Rufo would be good to interview on it.
Rufo, big
He
Nixon
loves
guy.
it. He does love Nixon.
All right. I got a fun one. The Pope knows ball.
I'm perdido.
So for the audios, he's posted in the Pope Mobile. Someone yells "Go Cubs" at him. He says, "Ah, perdido, they lost."
Yeah.
He's watching.
He
know
knows
him and
just
Brian.
smack in 2 languages about the crosstown rival.
Yep. Brian
That's
was, I'm telling you, Brian and him are probably having a good old time. The Cubs are out, right? They lost.
Oh yeah, they're out.
I mean,
So, tough. So are my Tigers as well. So we all are in misery together, but Pope knows ball. My takeaway from that, Pope knows ball.
very cute.
My takeaway from that is like, oh my gosh, someone who's relatable. Like, he's one of us. He's
The one of us chant. Totally. Okay, I'll rip this one quick. I had this C block. So I just had an update on John Bolton, the famous mustache. He was indicted. And I remember at the time,
Walrus.
everyone was like, wow, political persecution. Can't believe it. They got nothing on him. This is just like Trump. I will just read some of the samples. And it was way worse than I thought. Way worse. So, grand jury in Maryland indicted Bolton on 18 felony counts under the Espionage Act, which is serious, by the way. Espionage Act is super serious. 8 counts unlawful transmission of national defense information, 10 counts of unlawful retention of NDI, national defense information. So he was the national security advisor under Trump, just for people that didn't know. From 2018 to 2019, Trump hated him. These guys hate each other.
And it was a mutual feeling.
Yeah, these guys hate each other.
Went both ways.
Yeah. So the charges stem from alleged mishandling of classified materials from his time as the national security advisor. Here's some key allegations. And again, I can't even believe that I'm about to read this. Bolton reportedly shared over 1,000 pages of diary-like entries, detailed notes from intelligence briefings, situation room discussions, and meetings with foreign leaders via personal email and private messaging app, a group chat labeled "For Diary in the Future," with 2 relatives who lacked security clearances. These notes contained information classified up to top secret level, including intelligence on future attacks by adversarial groups, foreign partners' sensitive sharing with U.S. intelligence, missile launch plans of U.S. adversary, details on leaders of adversarial nations, and U.S. covert action plans.
That sounds bad, Tom.
That's not good. That kind of makes Hillary Clinton's emails look like
Bolton allegedly kept
Stole a
classified
lollipop
documents,
from the
writings, and
drugstore.
notes in his home, including items labeled confidential related to weapons of mass destruction, UN missions, and strategic communications. I have a quote from one of this indictment. And if anyone wants to have a good time, I mean, a good time, bad time, depending on what you call, it's all in the indictment. And it's horrible. I mean, it's way worse than I thought. Here's an example. I'll share the screen. Seriously, like I read this, I'm like, this is the guy that's in charge of shooting bombs overseas. Like, and he's just sending stuff for his diary. First off, you can't call it your diary, brother. Like, you can't just say that. All right. So July 23, 2018, Bolton sent individuals 1 and 2 a message stated, "More stuff coming!" Exclamation, exclamation point, exclamation point. A few minutes later, Bolton sent individuals 1 and 2 a 24-page document which described information that Bolton learned while National Security Advisor. Less than 3 hours later, Bolton sent individuals 1 and 2 a follow-up message that stated, "None of which we talk about!" Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. In response, individual 1 sent a message that stated, "Shh."
Probably jokingly.
Individual 2 then sent a message that stated, "The only interesting thing is what senior U.S. government official might have said from foreign language interpreter, which you didn't tell us." And then he sent back, "More to come with cloak and dagger or something," so he says.
Oh my gosh. That's not good.
And the kicker on all this, if you remember the Iran hack where they got all these emails? Yeah. Iran hacked his personal email account that he was sending stuff to the diary and the future writers of his book. That's how they got it. It wasn't like they got into official systems. They got it from his personal email.
Which was an AOL account, which is another reason he should be in jail.
Yeah. No one should use AOL.
What is this, 1998?
I was going back, well, thank you, but I was going back through what he said about Trump on handling classified documents and Edward Snowden. Direct quote, John Bolton, "He should be hanging from a tree." Edward Snowden.
What's with like wishing death on people? Is that like a...
It's a spiritual disease in which I feel like
spiritual
many
disease in this
neocons and foreign policy hawks possess. Like this, it's insane spiritual disease that comes with the power of being able to take people's lives.
Jesus Christ
over the
talking
world.
About that, like that
Yes.
desire to want someone to die and that you're thinking about inside is actually illicit. It's wrong.
Right.
And for those that weren't even aware of this too, like the Biden administration was actually working on prosecuting John Bolton. It wasn't just Trump, but I think they liked him because he was able to get on screen and attack Trump and make him sound bad.
Right.
So
but like
I worked in him.
everyone knew this guy was bad. I mean, I can't even this level of I don't even know where to start. I wouldn't do this at a local nonprofit, let alone the federal government in charge of people's lives, Americans' lives. Information on covert operations, like the boys actually sacrificing their lives, and you got mustache John Bolton just putting in my diary. I'm going to write it in my book one day. It's going to be so great when I attack Trump. Like, I hope this guy goes to jail for the rest of his life. What kind of precedent could we seriously, like, what kind of precedent are we setting that you can just serve in office, gather sensitive information to then write in your book one day to make money and profit off this? Like, this is all some type of cash cow for you. It's just so, I was even looking at comparisons. Like, obviously the Hillary Clinton email investigation comes to mind, in which she was not punished for, by the way, by James Comey. David Petraeus did it back in former CIA director, 4-star general. But one misdemeanor count of mishandling classified information for sharing classified black books. All he got was 2 years probation and $100,000 fine. He avoided the Espionage Act charges. Then, of course, Donald Trump himself with
his seemed more negligent and stupid rather than malicious.
Yeah.
Rather than malicious. I mean, this is
because Petraeus, I mean, he did it for his book as well. Like, who are these guys who are like, well, while I am, I have my finger on the red button and I could start World War III in the drop of a hat. I have this power. I'm also thinking about my memoir that I'm going to write once I'm out of here. So I'm just
part of it is that you got somebody that he hires somebody to write the book for him.
Here,
I got to be careful about the information you're sharing with this person, that you're getting them to write the book. So that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if they actually would just, have people on staff that are good writers, like have somebody who already has clearance to write the book so he can look at the information, but no.
Yeah. Or maybe we just shouldn't be drafting our memoirs while we're actually doing the job that justifies the existence of said.
Well, I thought Petraeus was already, maybe it wasn't out, but Bolton certainly is out of office. So
see ya. Good riddance.
Bye, Zebu.
Yeah, I hope he spends some time in jail at minimum. Okay, so we got some emails about this. I thought we'd address it briefly. So, headline from the Catholic Herald. I can share the screen here. Vatican Library grants Muslim scholars a prayer room. So we got some emails about it. I thought it's time to address. Muslim scholars visiting the Vatican Apostolic Library are being accommodated with prayer spaces. Its vice prefect has confirmed. So I think there's a couple things going on here. I think that most people don't really know what the Vatican Library is.
Well, before we get into that,
let's
just address the obvious negative reaction that people have, because they look, a lot of Catholics look at what's going on and around the world. They see Muslims that are in Africa that are slaughtering and murdering Christians, like in Nigeria. And so, there's obvious frustration with that. And we're like, why aren't we doing more about that injustice? And then even in our own Vatican Library, we're giving them a prayer room. And so, there's this natural gut reaction that some people have is like, this just seems so wrong. I can't believe it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think this could be true.
And so I think we have to acknowledge that I get that gut reaction. I feel like, you know what? Let's dive in a little bit deeper, though. I think there's more to this story.
Yeah, I just want to be nuanced. And I also think that there's plenty of peaceful Muslims all over the world that we've coexisted with. And I think part of the point, too, with the Vatican Library is, Father Joe Crupp had probably the best answer in this. I think I might even just read verbatim.
I'd say go for it.
Gives a lot of context. And shout out Father Joe. I'm going to do this as quick as possible in the knowledge that some people just need to be offended and indignant. The Vatican Library is a building within Vatican City. In that library, there are all kinds of texts, both ancient and more modern. You simply would not believe the incredible things in there. The world's smallest Quran and the world's largest Quran are in there. One of the only books of Muslim poetry that survived the Mongol invasion is in there. To get in is a very involved process. Only between 2,000 and 3,000 humans a year are allowed in. Going in and out of the library, even after having been accepted, is quite the process. They do this to protect the building and the things in it. Many parts of the Vatican Library are sealed because even air can corrupt these texts. Muslim scholars have gone there to study for a very long time. Devout Muslim scholars are required to pray 5 times a day at fairly specific times. Each time they would need to leave and go through the whole process of departing the building to do the 5 to 7 minute prayer that they are required to do, and then go through the process of re-entering. The process for getting in and out is longer than the prayer time their faith requires them to have. At some point, someone opened a small room and told them they could pray in there. It's basic good hospitality. Basically just addressed that people have been kind of freaking out about it and without actually knowing the context. Probably good to always remember too. Wait, Josh, important. Focus on your own sin. I can assure you that you have plenty. If you're anything like me, you should fight that battle, because at least in that case, you will have some sense of what you're talking about. He was angry about that, but I do think it's a good reminder, let's keep everything in balance here, always turn inward. But go ahead, Josh.
Well, part of it too is when it comes to the press, you have an obligation. We write a lot of articles, obviously, at Catholic Vote. And this article published by the Catholic Herald, I think it would have been more helpful if they would have just, rather than just say, hey, by the way, there's this prayer room for Muslims inside the Vatican Library. And then just, that was pretty much all the article was. And you're like,
yeah. And they knew they were throwing a bomb out there. They knew it was a grenade.
What are you doing here? Are you intentionally going for clickbait headlines that blow things up? I can tell you as the editor of the Loop, there's no way I'm going to just publish that article without saying, okay, is this a longstanding policy? Or was there a recent change? Why is the change? Why do they have this policy? And then all you'd have to do is, find somebody like Father Joe Crupp and say, well, here's why. And you're like, oh,
that's
okay.
Actually understandable. Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And as someone in the chat, any downplaying this is issue, being nice to these folks is not the objective of our faith. Actually, the objective of our faith is for everyone's salvation. So just because they're Muslim or they're from a certain part of the world does not mean we can hate them. If I saw a Muslim on the street, I wouldn't just throw hands with them. So I don't know. I get a little bit frustrated with the attitude towards global Muslims, lumping them all in with the small, Boko Haram and the people that are doing terrible things in Nigeria. Yeah, we need to confront that. But the fact is, it's what is it, the second, third largest religion? I think theologically we have much more in common with them than, say, we do with the Church of Latter-day Saints as Catholics. Hot take
possibly.
out there. No, we do, Josh.
Yeah, no,
but does that mean I'm mean to Muslims or mean to people that are Mormon?
Or shutting the church
respect,
has the church has a long history of not only the Battle of Lepanto, which you rightly point out, cigar mode, that is Yes, that is a big part. And like Josh is saying, absolutely resisting, even to the point of shedding our blood with Boko Haram and extremist Muslim. But the church also has a history of intellectual exchange with the Arab world, with scholars of Islam. Thomas Aquinas, most famously, right? Some of his central ideas of God as the supreme being came about for him because they were articulated first by these medieval Muslim philosophers who had access to Aristotle and Plato texts, right? So Avicenna and Averroes. That is also part. And that's what's happening at the Vatican Library, is that in the tradition of Thomas Aquinas, in the tradition of Averroes and Avicenna, that we are allowing Muslim scholars to come to really the world's greatest archaeological cache of the great texts that have shaped our thinking, both as Catholics and for Muslims, and allowing them with hospitality to come and study those original documents. And then giving them a room so that they can practice their faith while they're there. To me, that acknowledging that part of our faith is as important as the battles that, yes, we are raging in Nigeria, right, for the soul of Muslims to convert them. So this is part of that. This is part
just
of
try
that.
not to be knee-jerk when it comes to social media and all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
I
again,
gotta
this
tell you,
also isn't a sacred space. This is a library.
Right, that is another element of it. And also, like, I mean, 25 years ago, I was at the United Nations and I was working alongside, Muslims to try to fight back against this so-called international right to vote on abortion. So, like, hey, like, let's work together where we can.
Strange bedfellows.
Well, strange bedfellows, and who joined in on the that case in Maryland over the pride stuff in the English curriculum? It was actually a Muslim. I believe it was Muslim families joined and then they sued. So like, there's actually more in common, I think. So I think just like in this case, understanding the true context, like this is just a pure extension of hospitality into an academic space in which it really, actually, I think the real takeaway from this is how sick the Vatican Library actually is. Like, I saw they have
it's so freaking cool.
They have the oldest medieval Japanese archive outside of Japan in the Vatican.
Yes.
Like, maybe the real takeaway is like, I'm trying to go to the Vatican Library someday. Be one
Good
of those
luck with that
3,000 trying to get in there.
You need to write a couple of dissertations before you.
Yeah, I got my work cut out in front of me for sure. But yeah, anyway, that's my take on that at least. Thought we'd address. Josh, you are up.
Yeah, so I mean, again, want to be very clear. We talked about it previous episode about I thought it was a very politically charged protest where the priest brought the Eucharist to that ICE facility in Illinois. I want to, I echo our President Kelsey Reinhardt. I want to bring Jesus to everyone, into every prison, to every facility. But you can't just show up on a weekend and expect to be able to be let in. And so I just, even though the Department of Homeland Security, there's the whole government shutdown, they still managed to put this together, and just to let people know, like, I hope these guys do need Jesus, but you don't just knock on the door and come running in. We're talking about some of the worst, like Jose Patino Juarez, a criminal illegal alien from Mexico, convicted of disorderly conduct, arrested for assault, and 2 pending charges of assault and obstructing justice. We have another Isaiah Quintanilla Guzman, a criminal alien from El Salvador, convicted of 2 counts of felony robbery. Martin Guiquera Martinez, criminal illegal alien from Mexico, convicted of assault and 3 pending charges of aggravated assault with a weapon, assault, and damage to property. And we got both genders covered. Juliana Gonzalez Landeras, a criminal illegal alien from Mexico, convicted of theft in a business of greater than $10,000. So again, another one who's convicted of 2 counts of drug possession. Another one was assault, driving under the influence of liquor. So these are some pretty bad people, and it's good that they get off the streets. The way the media makes it try to pretend that like these are just, the ICE is just ripping people from their house. They're just people who are paying taxes. They're going to school and they're part of your community. Like the people inside this facility were some really horrible people.
Yeah.
Do they need Jesus? They do. Just don't show up with the Eucharist as if it's just a political postcard or placard.
Just waving it around.
Don't just expect, all right, let me in. Like, talk.
Yeah, it is crazy how I even saw some comments on our social media how that was like misconstrued or whatever. Like, isn't this exactly what Jesus would do? It's like you're missing the fundamental point for people that actually believe that is Jesus Christ.
That is the Eucharist.
So that's the biggest takeaway. And like, yeah, there's not choir kids in there. I hated that situation on a spiritual level. It's disgusting to me. So, thanks, Josh. Erica.
All right. So this is Lois McClatch, who I follow her because she's the senior communications officer for ADF International, right? Alliance Defending Freedom International. They do great work here. Shout out ADF. And they have a section out in the UK where it's even more needed. And so she was invited on a British news show. She thought she was invited on to talk about the UK's crackdown on free speech, which in fact ADF International is heavily involved in pushing back on. And instead, the interviewer sort of like sabotaged her with this question.
Here we go.
I thought she did a great job, so here we go.
You're also an advocate of celibacy before marriage, are you not? No sex before marriage. I'm sure you adhered to that, Greg Swenson.
Of course.
You had no idea this was coming.
Aren't you?
I am.
The normalising of that.
Sure. Yeah.
Just talk to me a little bit about that, because that is so unusual, Lois, in 2025
I don't know if it's as unusual
not.
amongst the younger
it not?
generation. Yeah.
I mean, we know the younger generation are not having sex as much because basically they're watching
playing
porn
with
all
their
the time.
phones, yeah.
But that's a very different issue to choosing to save yourself for your spouse.
Sure. Well, I suppose this view became less popular because of the sex revolution in the 70s, but a Yale study about the paradox of happiness shows that women's happiness since the 1970s has declined in both absolute and relative terms to men since then up until today. And so women are more dissatisfied with life than ever before, although it doesn't make sense. Don't we have the most freedom we've ever had? Haven't we been given sexual emancipation? And so I think, and it's been interesting to see the discourse around whether Taylor Swift has been kind of rediscovering this interest in marriage and security and permanence. I think young women are looking to that model, the model that we threw away, and thinking, isn't there something better here? Is commitment not something better than sleeping around? Can we find something that improves happiness for ourselves, but also encourages that stable society for children to grow up in, and for people to flourish?
Well, it's about self-respect as much as anything. I think the kind of, the new promiscuity, as you might call it, I think often is about the fact that young people don't necessarily think that their bodies are worth saving for someone. I'm not advocating.
Whatever Taylor Swift discovered, terrible. That new album was so bad. And my wife made me listen to it, and I could not believe how bad it was. Like, she was writing better stuff when she was 15. Anyway, I got that out of my system. Go ahead, Erica.
But anyway, I just wanted to give a shout out to Lois because I thought she handled it pretty well for not having had any warning that they were going to ask her about her views on sex before marriage. She thought she was going on there to do her job, which was defend the right to free speech. But I thought she did a pretty good job.
She was exceptional.
Yeah, it was great. So shout out to Lois. Good job. And in spite of the Taylor actually, I think she dropped the Taylor Swift reference in order to get
so bad
deflect from the.
That album was so bad. I'll never listen to it again. So bad. Whatever she discovered, I want her to undiscover
the
it.
music of the album. She's talking about.
No, I want her to continue breaking up with people so she can keep putting out what she did before. Because whatever happened this time, so bad. So bad.
You wouldn't wish that on a girl.
That's true. No, it's
not
no.
Cool. That was not cool.
Listen. Here's the thing. This is like, you know what great artists, like, they're addicted to cocaine and then they get sober and then their music isn't as good anymore. It's kind of like the same thing.
Wait, so you want them to continue in their
I'm
not saying
art? I'm not saying
no,
I want
you
you to be
said
back
that. I'm
to
calling you out. This is not good. Not good look.
I
You went too far.
publicly retract my statement on
There was
breaking
a
up.
line
I'm just
and you,
saying
like,
the magic's
leaped over
gone.
it.
The magic's gone.
All right.
That's all I gotta say on that.
That's okay.
All right,
I never was magic for Taylor Swift.
I don't even.
Sure.
Okay, see, that's another third level observation. I'm not even trying to get into here.
Toby Keith's biggest mistake.
Josh, what I wanted to talk
This wasn't about Taylor Swift. This was about Lois being a boss girl. So she did.
Yeah,
great.
I derailed that. But I just want to talk about this whole show. JB Pritzker is the greatest gambler of all time. And this is one of those things where it's like, I know I got to focus on other things, like IVF and whatnot, but like,
he couldn't, guys.
I just could not stay away. I dove
only
so
talked about
deep.
for 24 hours. Yeah.
Yep. I dove so deep into like politicians money laundering through casinos, the history of that, the history of like the betting odds of this even to be possible. Like, how much would you have to wager to win 1.4? So just, I'll get into the story. JB Pritzker released partial tax records Wednesday, showing he and his wife reported more than $10.3 million in taxable income, including
That's no surprise.
including more than $1.4 million in income from gambling. So immediately this blew up, and everyone's like, who is this degenerate? How could you have possibly won $1.4 million? So it turns out he said he went to Vegas and won it on blackjack.
Impressive.
And so immediately this all blows up, and he said, oh, no, we're going to donate it now. And he did a press conference where he addressed this directly. So
I've explained this, or at least we did in a statement, that I went on vacation with my wife, with some friends. I was incredibly lucky. You have to be to end up ahead, frankly, going to a casino anywhere. It was in Las Vegas, and
that doesn't look like the face of someone that got lucky one time in Vegas. I was going into the odds of this. Okay, just stay with me for a second. Basically, in order to win that kind of money, so like if you're playing blackjack, the house edge is like 2%. And so if you're really good at blackjack and you're counting cards, right? If you're really good, you might get it down to like 1.5%, 1%. Meaning, even though you're that good, you're still going to lose 2% more times than you would win. And most of the time, your odds of winning are like in the 40%, like 42%, like winning a blackjack hand. So in order for him to be able to do this in 1 year in Vegas, he would have to raise the table minimum, because the table minimum is usually like $25,000 a hand. And like, look, JB Pritzker is a billionaire, right? It's not like he doesn't have this money, but you can't, like, for him to have had the chance to win this much money in a year, he would have to ensure that he was doing high roller hands, which maybe he can, he's a billionaire, but he would have to play thousands of hands to accumulate $1.4 million. Could take days or weeks depending on bet size and win rate. And he would have to
well, it was him and his wife though. So
I guess
he could have just sat there at the table all year.
No. How many trips is he taking to Vegas? No. Like how many trips is he taking to Vegas? He win it all at one time. He would have to have an insane line of credit. Like, yes, he's a billionaire, but they have to know about this for sure. And I guess he could have been gambling for years and just not been reporting losses. But there's an extensive history of money laundering through casinos, because casinos, of course, have mob ties and all that. And then there's on record examples of politicians getting money, getting kickbacks. And in this case, couldn't they have just adjusted the odds slightly or tweaked a little bit so that he could have gotten that? And then I'm also well, he's a billionaire. What does he need money for? Why is he going, that would be the most convincing argument against this being some type of impropriety, is that he's already a billionaire. Why would he need this? But then I was like, well, this could be someone that wanted a record and connection of transaction to where they're doing something together. I don't know, man. My head.
He's running for president, so he needs to disclose everything. So, but the thing is, there are, what is it? Caesar's Palace. You can do a $50,000 bet. So, $50,000 a pop. It can happen. The most likely scenario is that he was paid off. It was just,
so obviously
he was given, $1 million by someone corrupt, and he just declared it, winning it at the casino.
I got it.
So you're not even having as much fun with this as I am. You're just this is obviously a payout. This is obviously money laundering.
Obviously payout.
Obviously. Yeah. And this is just, as I said, Tom, this is just Chicago politics. This is how it operates.
Yeah, the history of Chicago
always
politics.
Been thusly. This is Chicago.
So, and you don't even seem that scandalized by this. Do you think this is just pretty common?
Josh has been around the block with this. He's this is just what they do.
The only thing I would say is that if it was any other governor, I would say it was a 100% chance it was corruption payout. With him, there's actually the 5% chance that it's not, because he's a billionaire. What would he need $1 million
could actually afford to do this.
That's the greatest argument in his behalf.
Has he published his losses yet? That would be the top.
No, he has not. But if you basically
you don't have to declare your
you
losses.
don't have to unless you
it's not required.
And your losses are not. You don't get you don't get a tax deduction.
You can't write it off.
You don't get to write that
There's
off.
No reason for him to do
loss.
It
Just sucks. Yeah.
We'll
Although I would
know.
love if he came out now after all this and actually did, for sake of getting me out of it, to show how bad of a gambler he is. What if over the last 10 years he's lost $100 million, something like that.
$280 million.
And this year I was finally lucky. I finally hit the blackjack tables right. So I think new strategy to pay off debt in Illinois and Chicago is whatever his betting secret is. What's his secret? Is he cutting at a certain point? Is he doubling down in certain places? I think he should just release the formula. That would get him out of debt.
Mm-hmm. It's called the Al Capone formula. That's what it's
called. Most prominent gambler in politics before this was William J. Bennett, who wrote all the books on, moral propriety and all that kind of stuff. And so
Yes.
then the media loved it. Here's the guy who's spending, losing 50 grand in Vegas. He goes, yeah, it's kind of stupid. Whatever.
Wait, what was his position? You said he was a politician that gambled?
No, I mean, he was not. He never was in elective office, but he was the secretary of Department of Education. He's also secretary of, whatever. He was a good conservative. He wrote lots of. I have several books of his on my shelf. He was a good guy. He was a Catholic guy,
And here's another like devil's advocate take on this. I think it actually kind of makes him more relatable and cool.
Pritzker, for sure.
Which is the unfortunate reality of all this, because the people that hated him before are still going to hate him. But to all the people in the middle, they're like, oh, Pritzker's throwing down action in Vegas makes him kind of cool. It's like the Trump thing.
Totally.
Yeah. So that's the unfortunate thing about all of this, is this probably actually makes him look sick. And
I think Gavin Newsom's still the guy to beat on the Democratic side, but Pritzker has unlimited funds practically, and so he is going to be involved in this race.
He looks like he's losing weight too, which is always a tell. They're getting
right.
He's slimming
very
up,
much a
slimming
tell.
down.
That's very true.
No, I've been noticing it. I'm like, oh, maybe.
I remember when
the Ozempic going.
Yeah. I live in Michigan, and John Engler, the governor, he was a big guy, bigger than me even. He liked his hamburgers, and when election year would come around, he'd slim up or whatever. And like when he was running against Jeffrey Feiger, the crazy psycho, he's like, he didn't even bother losing weight. He was like, I got this in the bag. Anyway.
Bernie Sanders has been combing his hair. That's the tell for me with Bernie. He's getting ready to jump on the ticket with AOC, because he showed up at the CNN town hall and I was like, he actually looks put together. There was like makeup, there was hair. I was like, oh, Bernie.
This would make a great video of just like
the
ways I know who's running for office. It's just like slight changes. Like JB Pritzker lost weight. We got combed hair.
Yeah.
Pritzker could vie for being vice president just because then he could spend unlimited amount of money on. If Gavin Newsom gets it, he goes, well, make me the VP. I will spend
$200
million or whatever. Yeah.
People said all the same thing about Trump. Like Trump had a huge advantage because he was self-funded. Like he didn't have to. So
and he had great hair.
And I hate to give out free game here, but if I was a Democrat after this, I'd be hosting a poker night, televised, stream it with Gavin Newsom, with all the Democratic heavy hitters, and Pritzker would be there. And they'd be like wearing sunglasses, and then they could use that as an opportunity to
get some
leverage
of the
off this.
podcast bros to be the comic relief.
Yes, for sure. I hate to give out free game, but I wouldn't be surprised if that actually happens. And it'd be a big middle finger to all the people that hate him, and they'd gen all the controversy and get the clicks.
Let's hope they don't listen to this. Let's hope they don't listen to this.
Yeah, tune out now. Actually, don't listen to this.
Don't give free advice to the enemy.
Yeah, I'm giving free game here. Okay, good show, gang. So actually, random, but I got to interview Congressman Riley Moore. I'm actually going to release this at 2 p.m. Eastern. So I'm going to release this after this one, so it can be available for the weekend loop people. It was a great conversation. Cool guy. Welder before he was in office. So we just talked about welding. There's a lot of weld talk. Bishop Barron talk. He had Bishop Barron in the State of the Union, or the address to the joint whatever of Congress. People get mad if you say State of the Union. It's not.
Josh.
We both laughed about that. But anyway, great interview. Check that one out after this. You want more LOOPcast. But yeah, pray for us. We have I don't know what prayer this is today. We just source from
daily
our
offering.
Prayer chat, daily offering. That works. And send you guys off into a good weekend. All right. In the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Take, Lord, receive all my liberty, my memory, my understanding, my whole will, all that I have, and all that I possess. You gave it all to me, Lord. I give it all back to you. Do with it as you will, according to your good pleasure. Give me your love and your grace, for with this I have all that I need. Amen. St. Thomas More, St. Fidelis.